Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 453 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger. He's on a cruise ship right now. It is of course Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week? And you're all aboard a ship.
Yes sir. I'm doing great, my man. This time I'm actually on a little vacation, you know what I mean? I try to every once in a while, try to enjoy myself and not 24/7 working, but, you know, I actually like, you know, the idea of being at work and not just at work. Well, because what I do is, boxing and training and, you know, a lot of other things. So it's enjoyable most of the time, but now I'm on a little vacay and it's not bad. You know what I mean? It's not bad at all. Actually, it's relaxing. I give it a 9 out of 10. But got to get back to work soon. So, yeah, you know, let's keep it moving.
Let's keep it moving. Aye, Captain. Let's move straight to the review part of the show then. We're going to start here at the Bolton Whites Hotel in Lancashire, United Kingdom. Over here, couple fights to mention. It went down on Channel 5 last Friday, June the 14th, I think was the date. I'm just going to get this in nice and early on the podcast. There was a whole heap of upsets on the weekend, and we're going to start here with potentially the biggest upset, of the year so far. I'd go as far to say it was certainly the biggest upset of the weekend, without question. Friend of the show, Lerone Richards, now 18-1. He was TKO'd in the 6th round against Steed Woodall, who's now 19-2 with a draw. Richards down from a right hand. Prior to the stoppage, he got back up and he was incredibly shaky. The referee waved it off. Like I say, 6th round TKO. Lerone Richards, I've said it so many times on this podcast before, extremely talented fighter, all the talent in the world in all honesty, but he's been so poorly managed. There was a chance at one point for him to box on a Canelo undercard. He ended up not taking the fight in the end, and now he finds himself losing here on a card where he wasn't even televised. You know, in the end they showed his highlights of his fight, but he wasn't even televised live. And this is a guy who, you know, has got all the skill in the world. He's so hard to hit. He's been around forever. There's lots of sparring stories about him, you know, particularly against Chris Eubank Jr., doing really well with Chris Eubank Jr. when he was a young kid, if you like. And he's a lovely guy, Lerone Richards. You know, we've had him on the show a couple of times. Lovely guy, but yeah, just a catastrophic upset there. And, you know, he loses his O on an undercard, like I say, in an untelevised bout. And, you know, I actually don't know where he goes from here, you know, because again, he hasn't got the best style to watch, and I think that has kind of worked against him. And I don't think he's got, you know, well, he certainly doesn't have an outlandish personality. He's not a trash talker by any stretch of anyone's imagination, and his boxing style isn't the best to watch. So, like I say, I think he's going to really struggle to come back from here, and I'm absolutely devastated for him. I did send him a text, actually. He hasn't replied, but I hope he's okay. And yeah, what a terrible way for his career to have turned. I didn't think things could have got much worse, but he loses his O, and I'm devastated for him. But you know what? Massive shout out and congratulations to Steed Woodall, who was a humongous underdog, and he's pulled off a win. But not just a win, a stoppage win against Lerone Richards, who is hard to hit. Ask Carlos Gongora, an absolute banger. Couldn't lay a glove on him for the whole of their, you know, the whole entirety of their fight. Anyway, moving on. Abbas Barao, the German, he comes to the UK, I think now, twice in a row, beating, fighters over here. He is now 16-1, a unanimous decision for him over 12 rounds, a successful defence of his EBU European Super Welterweight title against the ever so tough Bakole McGowan. He's very game, but wasn't quite good enough. He's now 20-5 with 2 draws. Like I say, Barao, I think now has come over here for the Eggington fight and now the McGowan fight. He's won both fights. He's a very good fighter, to be honest with you, Abbas Barao. I'm not quite sure he's going to become a world champion. I think he's kind of like, he's somewhere between European and world level, but I don't quite know. I'd say he's elite kind of thing, but he's a good fighter, and I think they're building him quite nice, the Sauerlands, but it's another good win for him. He was just way too good for McGowan, and I did say on last week's show, McGowan's never been stopped, but the bookies were expecting Barao to stop him, and to be honest, I mean, the Tau probably could have came in late on, but Joe Gallagher is quite brave as a trainer, I think, and Bakole McGowan would be quite pleased with himself. I think he's back on a building site already this week, and he's a tough customer. But yeah, good win for Abbas Barao, and he looked good once again. Moving now to the Coliseo Juan Albin Cruz Abreu in Puerto Rico. This one was live on DAZN. I've got to say, because it clashed with the Tank Davis card, I didn't really see much of this, but I see that Subriel Matias, who was 20-1 with 20 KOs, and he'd avenged the one loss as well by KO, he stepped in with the undefeated Aussie Liam Parrow, now 25-0. Liam Parrow, to his credit, has gone there to Puerto Rico I should say, and upset the odds against the home fighter, the homecoming. He's ruined the party there for Subriel Matias, who loses his IBF World Super Lightweight title. Even though Parrow was deducted a point in round 7 for holding, he still won the fight unanimously. That is such an unbelievable performance from Liam Parrow. He showed a lot of dynamics to his game. He boxed fantastically at times off the back foot, and the thing about him, he really mixed it up and really showed a heck of a lot of variation in his work. I think at times he had Subriel Matias kind of second guessing a lot of the time. So credit to Liam Parrow there. He could have easily gone over there with that fear factor instilled in him. This guy's knocked over everyone that he's been in a ring with, and he's going to be more than up for it in front of his home fans. It's a big party for him in Puerto Rico, but yeah, he goes over there and does a real good job there on Matias. Like I say, it didn't matter in the end that he even had a point deducted. It was that wide. So unbelievable for Liam Parrow. And just like that, he's a humongous name at 140. All the best to him. Moving now to the Mears Leisure Centre in Grantham, Lincolnshire, United Kingdom. This one was a 4-rounder here with former world title challenger Callum Johnson, friend of the show, now 22-1. A points win, a rare points win for him over 4 rounds against Victor Chvarkor, who is now 5-14. Chvarkor had a point deducted for holding in the 4th and final round. Callum Johnson in the end ended up weighing 210 pounds for this fight, so an official heavyweight there for Callum Johnson, former light heavyweight contender. What else did we have? Let's move now to Selhurst Park, the Crystal Palace card. It was live on Sky Sports. I don't think you saw any of this, Eddie, but another upset, I guess, on this card. You could certainly say, like we said already, Lerone Richards was an upset. Liam Parrow was he upset the odds against Subriel Matias, and over here, this was considered an upset for sure, this one here. Dan Aziz, now 20-1 with a draw. He was coming off that loss last time out on points to Joshua Buatsi. He stepped in there with a guy called, I don't really know how to say his name, but Hroj Sepp, I'm going to say his name is. He was 12-2 going in. Apparently he was quite a good amateur, but as a pro, just wasn't really able to cut it. His 2 losses were, one was to, somewhat of a journeyman, and the other one was to the Latvian who beat what was his name? The Latvian who, you're not going to know the name, Eddie, but he was a Latvian who once upon a time knocked out Hosea Burton, then boxed Josh Buatsi and lost to Buatsi. Oh my God, it was almost there. And then same guy fought Alexander Gvozdik, I think in Mexico. Oh God. I think it's, dearie me. Ricards Bolotniks. It was there in the end. So yeah, anyway, Hroj Sepp lost to Ricards Bolotniks. But anyway, got in there with Dan Aziz. Like I say, it was an 8-rounder. And it was only up the road from where Dan Aziz lives. So I would have thought quite a lot of his fans would have, and friends and family, I should say, more importantly, would have been there in attendance for him. It was a little bit of a homecoming for him as well. But a bitterly disappointing performance for him, especially early on in the fight. He seemed to just start very slow. He was being outworked, and you could see that Sepp was quite a good fighter, actually. I think they really underestimated him. And, in the end, Dan Aziz escapes with a very, very fortunate draw. So that was massive. That was 33-1 for the draw. I actually backed it. At 33-1 and won the bet. Points win. Well, no, not a points win. A points draw there. It was only the referee that was scoring the fight. That's probably another favour for Dan Aziz, because if 3 judges were scoring that fight, I don't quite know if he would have been walking away with a draw or a win. May have been a loss. Moving up the card once again, Ben Whittaker now 8-0. A unanimous decision for him over 10 rounds against Ewarishe, also known as Ezra Aranyeka, who was 12-0 with 10 KOs. He now has his first career loss, 12-1. Like I say, that one went 10 rounds. It was for the vacant IBF International Light Heavyweight title. Aranyeka deducted a point in the 7th round for an elbow, and probably should have had a point deducted as well for a headbutt, a blatant headbutt. Not the best performance from Ben Whittaker, in all honesty. He promised big things before the fight, because obviously Ezra, crashed his press conference for his last fight, said, "You're not boxing anyone of note, come and fight me," and made a little bit of a name for himself just based off of the build-up and all the rest of it, and the little bit of history that they created that day there. And, we thought that this guy, Ezra Aranyeka, probably a decent puncher, 10 KOs from his 12 wins, but at some point he's going to probably get caught opening up, and we're going to see, a knockout here. But no, ended up going 10 rounds. Like I say, I think that's the first time Ben has gone 10. And yeah, like I said, he promised a lot of things. He kind of started the fight, early on. He wasn't really showboating and stuff like he normally does. He seemed to be kind of dialed in, like he wanted to, he was there for business. But then as the fight went on, I think he probably wasn't catching Ezra as cleanly as he would have liked to. I think Ezra's kind of, his guard and stuff was his defense was pretty good. And I don't think anyone was really expecting that. So I think Ben at times was struggling to get through with certain shots. I think he hurt him with a body shot at one point in the fight. But other than that, he didn't really throw anything that bothered Aranyeka. And as the fight went on, he did start to showboat a bit more and stuff. But it wasn't as over the top as we've seen it in the past with Ben Whittaker. And I think if there were another 2 rounds in the fight, Ben Whittaker would have probably stopped him, because he hurt him pretty bad in the final seconds of the last round. So obviously, yeah, the bell came at a good time for Aranyeka, and a lot of people are not impressed now with Ben Whittaker off the back of that. But it is what it is. It's all part of the learning curve, I think. I still can't believe he's like 27 years old. For some reason, I look at Ben Whittaker, and I don't know what it is, but I find it so hard to believe that I'm older than him. I'm 30 now, and I can't believe, for some reason, I just feel like he's older than me, but he's 27. He just seems older for some reason. I don't know why. Also on the card as well, another upset, but again, we called it, and I also backed it in my betting group. Isaac Chamberlain, friend of the show, now 16-3. He lost a unanimous decision over 12 rounds to Jack Massey, now 22-2. Jack Massey, like I say, was tipped in my betting group at 3-1 to win on points. That is what happened. It was for the vacant EBU, European, and also Commonwealth Cruiserweight titles. Very, very good fight. It actually was quite entertaining. I felt the fight. Usyk Chamberlain is made of some tough stuff. He's a true African warrior. I think he wouldn't mind me saying that. He's a tough guy, and doesn't really seem to get hurt by anything. You can throw whatever you like at Usyk Chamberlain. He will not stop coming. And, he kept coming forward. At times he was walking through punches from Jack Massey that looked like big shots. He was coming through it. Sometimes just not doing enough. I think sometimes he was being outworked. But again, nothing would really deter him. And sometimes Jack Massey would kind of have a bit of success, but then he'd kind of like go into rest mode a little bit to try and rest a little bit. And Usyk Chamberlain was putting the pressure on at times like that. And yeah, it was an interesting tactic, because at times I was beginning to think, Usyk Chamberlain's having a lot of success here, and as the fight was going on, it was actually Usyk who was kind of stronger in the later stages of the fight. I felt, not the last couple of rounds, but sort of the mid to late rounds. I felt that Usyk Chamberlain did a lot of good work and was coming back into the fight after a bit of a poor start. That though was the area where I thought Massey would take over in the second half of the fight, but like I say, I think Usyk Chamberlain did pretty well in those kind of rounds. I'd probably say from about round sort of 6 to 10. But yeah, good fight. Jack Massey I felt was fantastic at kind of like long range, where it was more Usyk Chamberlain's game up close. But yeah, Jack Massey showed us a little bit of everything. He boxed, he had a fight at times, and again, he showed a lot of heart, a good chin. I think both guys probably put a few miles on their clocks, and I could see it coming. I just, as the fight got closer and closer to happening, like the day before the fight, the day of the fight, more and more I'd just become more and more confident in Jack Massey. I just felt he's going to win this, and I'm happy for Jack Massey, even though obviously Usyk's a friend of the show. Jack Massey has has had such a sort of quiet career. He's been a very good fighter, and like I say, he lost to Richard Riakporhe in kind of controversial circumstances, and then lost to Joseph Parker before Joseph Parker went on this crazy run. So I'm hoping that win there gets him a shot at the at the cruiserweight title. Really, that's what he deserves. And let's move to that fight here. Another big upset. Chris Billam-Smith was able to avenge his sole career defeat to Richard Riakporhe. Chris Billam-Smith now 20-1, a successful defense again. That's his second defense of his WBO Cruiserweight World title. Richard Riakporhe loses his own. He's now 17-1. Riakporhe was deducted a point in the 12th round for repeated use of his head. He seemed to be doing that all night long. And he probably should have had a point or two taken for holding, because for some reason, even though he was way behind on the scorecards, he just kept initiating holds. I have to say, I backed Richard Riakporhe to win. I really thought he would win the fight. I was so disappointed with him. I couldn't believe how bad he was, honestly. I felt it was quite embarrassing, and I felt that Boxer and Ben Shalom had kind of put it on a plate for him, really. They got him the fight at Selhurst Park. They easily could have sold out the fight in the champions' backyard of Bournemouth, easily. And, he beaten Chris Billam-Smith, I think, in 2019, I think the first fight was. And the way he fought the other night, no ambition at all after the first round. I think he might have won the first round, but from that point onwards, it was just terrible. Absolutely terrible. He was throwing in singles. He looked like he was fighting in quicksand. He was so slow. He was initiating holds when he needed a knockout, and that was so frustrating to watch. He was smothering his own work. It just didn't make any sense. He was almost boxing as if he was Lawrence Okoli against Chris Billam-Smith. And for Chris Billam-Smith, who I didn't really give much of a chance going into the fight, even though there was one thing he did say in the build-up: I've improved as a fighter since you beat me, Richard. I don't know if you have. And I think that he was bang on the money with that. He certainly has improved. And I still think he's probably an overachiever. But do you know what? He seems like a nice guy. He's known as the gentleman. And to get 2 successful defense under your belt, you know, with I don't want to say a limited skill set, but I don't think he's, you know, he doesn't have that wow factor. I think he kind of just does the basics well. I think Shane McGuigan has worked, you know, unbelievably well for him. I think they're a match made in heaven, and yeah, I think he's an overachiever, but credit to him. And you know, he's going to move on to a 3rd defense in his next fight. It's you know, it's amazing, really. I'm here for it, to be totally honest with you. So all the best to Chris Billum-Smith and Richard Riakporhe. I know he's suffered only his first career loss, but I just don't want to see him. I don't want to see him for a while, to be honest. He's on timeout from me. I don't want to see him again for a while. I think he's much better than he was the other night, and if you're only as good as your last fight, then I don't want to see him fight ever again. And I know that sounds harsh, but he was that bad. I was so confident in him. He let everyone down, and all those paying supporters that came there for him, it was a disgrace, and he should be quite embarrassed. And I hate saying that. I don't like disrespecting fighters, but he was so bad. I hope people are telling him this in his ear, because he needs to hear it from someone. Right, rant over. Moving now to the Boeing Center at Techport, San Antonio, Texas, USA. Over here, friend of the show Hector Tanahara moved to 22-1 with a draw. A unanimous decision for him over 4 rounds against Frank Brown, who's now added a load of fights to his record there. He's now 3-4 with 2 draws. Yeah, to confirm, that is 3 wins, 4 losses and 2 draws. Frank Brown, who, this is a mad one, but the scores across the board from 3 scoring judges in a 4-round fight were 40-33. So I'm guessing that Frank Brown must have been knocked down, or at least deducted a point, in 3 of the 4 rounds. So, yeah, you don't often see a 40-33 scorecard, so that is the only way it makes sense to me. I didn't see the fight, of course. Moving to the final card to mention, again, full of upsets. It took place at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. I'm going to try to whiz through this as quick as I can, Eddie, then I'll come to you. On the undercard, Mark Magsayo, friend of the show, former world champion, now 26-2. A unanimous decision for him against Eduardo Ramirez, who's now 28-4 with 3 draws. This one was for the vacant WBA Intercontinental Super Featherweight title. I think I'm right in saying Mark Magsayo scored a knockdown in that fight as well, but managed to win unanimously over 10. Happy for him. Also on the card, again, I feel like I said this on last week's show, but I'm not entirely sure I did say it. But I backed Elijah Garcia to win on points rather than stopping Kyrone Davis, because I know Kyrone Davis is tough. Well, in the end, Kyrone Davis actually pulled off a mega upset. He's now 19-3 with a draw. He takes Elijah Garcia's O by split decision over 10 rounds, and it probably shouldn't have even been a split decision. Kyrone Davis was absolutely fantastic. If I'm right, I think one of the judges had it wide to Elijah Garcia as well, which was a disgrace of a card. And I actually should look deeper into that, because I think that's the right fight. It was extremely wide. It was something like 9 rounds to 1 in favour of Garcia, which was madness. I don't know if the judge has put the wrong name down or something, but yeah, he lost that fight quite clearly, Elijah Garcia. So massive upset there. Again, Kyrone Davis upsetting the odds. Also on the card, Carlos Adames again. This was another one. They expected him to stop Terrell Gausha, and I said I couldn't see it happening, and I said that the bet is for that fight to go the distance. Terrell Gausha as well, I said, was a 9-1 underdog to win the fight on points, which I said was way too high of a price. It was a very competitive fight, actually, until kind of probably like round 7, round 8. That's where I think Adamez started to kind of pull away a little bit. But again, it was a very close fight, way closer than the odds would have made you think it was going to be. And I also said on last week's show that Carlos Adamez has got 49 siblings. I got that wrong. I think he's got 34 siblings. So I apologise, giving the dad an extra 15 kids, as you do. But yeah, 35. I think he's the 33rd in line. So he's got like 2 younger siblings and 32 older siblings. So yeah, amazing. But yeah, Carlos Adamez now 24-1, a unanimous decision for the WBC middleweight world title against Terrell Gausha, friend of the show, now 24-4 with a draw. Still so tough, still unfortunately just at that gatekeeper level, and probably not a true middleweight in all honesty. Also on the card, Gary Antoine Russell, another huge shock. He's a friend of the show. He's been on a couple of times. He was on a few weeks ago. He's now 17-1. He lost a split decision over 12 rounds for the WBC interim world super lightweight title against a very, very good Alberto Puello, former, I don't want to say drugs cheat because I don't know the ins and outs, but obviously served a ban for an illegal substance. He's now 23-0, and he was also deducted a point in round 9 and still won the fight on points. I felt it was a close fight, to be honest with you. I wasn't really strictly scoring it, but it felt to me like Gary Antoine Russell maybe won the fight. But again, I don't know. I wasn't scoring it. I was really zoning out a little bit, and I shouldn't have done that. But I felt Gary Antoine Russell would probably stop him. But I can't say I've seen much of Puello. But I was a big believer, or I am still a big believer in Gary Antoine Russell. But we're gonna have to see a rematch, because they were saying he's the boogeyman really at 140, and no one wants to fight him. But obviously, kind of got, I don't want to say exposed, but he got beat the other night. So yeah, he needs to right that wrong, I think. And yeah, it was quite a good fight. I think sometimes he just didn't have enough ideas, and I think Puello was quite smart. The little bits I did see, I thought he was fantastic, Puello, quite good punch volume as well, and he was targeting the body of Gary Russell. But yeah, good fight. A lot of people again felt that Gary Antoine Russell won the fight. There were people going crazy on Twitter, and yeah, again, a massive upset there. That one was for the WBC interim world super lightweight title. Moving up to this one, David Benavidez now 29-0, a unanimous decision. I think you called this, Eddie. You thought that it'd probably go to points, and I said I think it's going to go late as well. A unanimous decision over 12 rounds for the WBC interim light heavyweight world title. Yeah, I felt it was quite a good fight. Some people are bashing Benavidez, because they expected more from him. They thought he'd go in there and probably knock out his opponent. His opponent is his friend of the show, Alexander Gvozdyk, now 20-2. Yeah, Gvozdyk is a tough old guy. He's 37 years of age, and he hadn't really had a proper fight for probably about 5 years, and he was on a little bit of a sort of comeback, with his 2 or 3 wins since returning to the sport after a few years out. And early on, it looked like he was probably gonna get stopped. He had a terrible first few rounds. David Benavidez was all over him like a rash. But then I think Benavidez probably wanted to get him out and probably started the fight early, nice and fast, thinking I want to get him out before Beterbiev did. I want to get him out early, and he's an older man than me. I'm going to get rid of him. And I think he realised at some point, like, this just ain't going to happen. And I don't want to make excuses for David Benavidez, but I'm not going to bash him like a lot of other people are doing. I thought he was good. It was his first fight at light heavyweight. He was, you could see the weight difference sort of thing. Like it's not his true division. I think he's already said he's going to move back down to 168. It was just a test of the water, really. And yeah, I'm not going to bash him, like I say, but I think that he kind of blew his load early, if you like, and he just didn't really have enough in the later rounds to get rid of Gvozdyk. And as the fight went on, Gvozdyk actually sort of had a little bit of success, particularly late on. Nothing like to make you think he won the fight by any stretch. But yeah, I was quite impressed with him because like I say, he had a bad start to the fight, but then he seemed to kind of grow in confidence as the fight went on, and I just after 2 rounds I thought there's no way this is going the distance. David's going to end up stopping him, but credit to Gvozdyk at 37 to show he's still made of some tough stuff. I know you saw that fight, Eddie, and I'm going to come to you in a sec, but I'm just going to quickly touch on the main event, and then I'll come to you for kind of like your review of those fights or any fights you did see. So yeah, Gervonta Tank Davis, friend of the show, now 30-0, a KO for him in round 8. A successful defense of his WBA World Lightweight title against Frank Martin, who's now 18-1. He loses his It was a good fight. I felt Frank Martin was sweeping up the early rounds. I felt he probably won the first 3. Things did start to get a little bit more competitive after that, but again, I think Frank Martin had a lot more success than I felt he would get. I think we said on last week's show, this is the big leagues. He's beaten some good fighters. He's a very good fighter, but is he actually great? And I'm not so sure he's great, kind of thing. Well, I didn't think he'd do this well against Gervonta Davis. Honestly, I really didn't think he'd be sweeping up, a bunch of rounds. And yeah, it got to the point in the fight, obviously late on, where those punches were beginning to catch up with him. I think he was beginning to slow down Frank Martin, but he was probably ahead in the fight, So it's another time where Gervonta has managed to find that one big punch, which he always seems to land, pretty much. I think he's got 28 KOs now in his 30 wins, which is unbelievable for a guy, down at lightweight. He's such a big puncher for the weight. It's pound for pound punching power. But yeah, he found that punch and managed to, get the fight finished in a flash at a time where he needed it. And it's not the first time where I'd say he's been down in a fight but managed to just find that equalizer. So unbelievable punch to finish the fight. Obviously Frank Martin was down. I think he barely made the count. He was he couldn't have took another punch. So yeah, good stoppage. Obviously unbelievable punch that Tank hit him with. You could see he's not getting up from that, or at least he's not going to be able to carry on from that the minute the punch landed. But yeah, Frank Martin fought well up to that point, and I do want to see him again. But Tank, as we expected, Eddie, was just, maybe just a bit too good. I think he may have just been buying his time a little bit. But Frank Martin was more than competitive and probably over-impressed, for me at least.
Yeah, man. I expected what I saw out of Frank Martin to a degree. Not that I've seen a whole lot of him, but he's not. Just from what I did see and from what I heard and, the respect that he's earned, I figured that Tank would probably slow walk him into, the later rounds and then eventually get him. He was, I think, a little bit too busy with his feet and his hands, to be honest. I think he felt the pressure, going into round 4 and 5 is when you could see him start to, not move as much, and Tank started to land shots not only to the head but to the body at times. Nothing heavy, nothing crazy, nothing, that would make you say, oh, shit, right away. But as he started to slow down, he started to go from corner to corner and try to fight out of the corner like a caged cat and throw some shots real quick, like something to get him off him with, and then continue to move. And you could see that the wall was closing in on him and that eventually he was going to get stopped. That's the way I view it. You know what I mean? I've fought guys and I've seen other fights of guys. Like I can give you an example, even though he had the loaded gloves when Miguel Cotto was fighting Antonio Margarito, he was having a lot of success with boxing early on in the fight, but he was just moving too much. You know what I mean? The pressure was getting too much. The punches were coming too close and there was too many of them for him to just be able to run all night and move all night. So it's kind of the same thing with Frank Martin. And I think Frank Martin understood that and he started to try to slow down and get in a position where he can defend at closer range and not keep giving him ground. Because when you give ground, the guys start to come in and they start to get more, what's the word I'm looking for? More momentum. You know what I mean? Into the fight, and the fact that he was going backwards too much caused that to be even more, even crazier as the fight wore on. And then, of course, we saw once he got to round 8, it wasn't that his gas tank was empty. It was just that he got tired of moving. And he wanted to get respect, and his legs probably started to feel it a little bit, and his punch count slowed a little bit, and he started to stick a little longer than he should have. And then that's when you know that eventually it's coming, because we know Tank has one of the highest IQs in boxing, I believe. He may not be a book smart guy. He may not know geography very well. He may not know math or all these other things very well. But one thing he knows is boxing, and he understands it inside and out. He's been doing it for a very long time. So even at his young age, you can't hide from that. And he, of course, has extremely high level of skill and explosive power. So, once mix that all up with the IQ and the speed, it's just, it's a recipe for disaster if you don't have enough defensively. And what I mean by defensively is not just defensively with your feet. It's not just being able to catch punches. It's not just being able to slip punches. It's all of them. It's IQ, it's understanding. And I'm not saying Frank Martin didn't have that, but he just didn't have enough. And eventually he got caught. And that's just, it's unfortunate for him. Great fighter. He's going to be great. He's going to do a lot of good things in boxing. I hope this fight didn't take too much out of him, which I really don't believe. So he got caught with 2 big shots, and he didn't really take too much punishment. But I like to see him come back against some other guys. And I think he'll have some success against some other guys, to be honest. I don't want to name any names right now. I can't think of any right offhand. But there's some guys out there that he'll have some success against, because he is a good fighter. As far as the fight with David Benavidez, I don't want to say hate, but I really dislike certain boxing fans and certain boxing people. As soon as they see something that is not 1,000,000% to their liking, they got a bash. They got to say, David Benavidez is still a monster. He just realized he went up a weight class fighting one of the better guys in the weight class. The guy that the only stoppage loss he had, I think it was the only loss he had, was against a killer, that knocked everyone out. And then you're just expecting him to go up there and knock this guy out. This guy has a lot of experience. He's got top level skill and IQ. He knows how to box. He knows his way around the ring, and he's bigger than what Benavidez had been facing recently. So I hate that bashing shit. It just bothers me when, especially if it's coming from other fighters, that's even worse. But I understand the fans to a degree, because they just expect what they expect. But when you got intelligent people or intelligent boxing people looking at a fighter and just expecting something just because of what he's done in the past against other guys, you have to remember, boxing is not fought on paper. Boxing is also not fought with triangle theories of, because this guy beat this guy, or because this guy knocked him out, nobody gives a shit about that. At the end of the day, you got to go in there and win. What did he do? He won unanimously. Wasn't no confusion. You understand what I'm saying? And then on top of that, I thought a lot of what he did, especially, and I do agree, Joe, maybe not blew his load, but he damn sure put a lot into those early rounds to get him out of there. And I think that affected his performance down the line and down the stretch of the fight. But he still showed the ability to box, the ability to, box with aggression, and, the defensive tactics. He had a lot more than just that ferocious come forward combination punching. He's put a lot into, and especially if he's going to be fighting at 175 as well. He's going to have to box some too. He's not going to just be able to walk everybody down and throw 1,000 punches at him. You know what I'm saying? He wouldn't be able to do that to Canelo either. So I think what he did and the way he performed was what he needed. You understand what I'm saying? I think it's what he needed to be able to show in a situation where he just doesn't have to go in and knock everyone out. Even with Caleb Plant, the way he fought with Caleb Plant, I really respected his performances. Not just always, even with Caleb Plant, I think he was a little more aggressive on the front foot and trying to dominate that way, which he was in this fight too. But I think he had to do a little more back foot, a little more pull counter type things, some defensive tactics as well. He showed a little. He went in his bag a little more, I think, in this fight, which is exactly what I wanted to see from him. In my opinion, this was a good performance, one of the better performances, because I saw him in a situation where he made somewhat of a mistake early on, expecting to be able to get a guy out, and was still down the stretch able to win rounds and dominate the fight, prove that he's still, the monster that he's proven to be in the past. I mean, I just really don't understand the hate, but it's boxing, and you know how boxing is. It's what have you done for me lately? These fickle ass fans, and it upsets me. But I guess that's sports fans in general, and it irritates me because I've had to deal with it. I've had to hear guys who were peers say stupid stuff that just didn't make sense to me. But hey, at the end of the day, boxing is boxing, and we're gonna have that at times. But all in all, I thought both performances were good. I thought even the fighters who lost, they brought their A game. They did what they were supposed to do and what they could do up to the point of defeat. So good card, good performances. Looking to see what these guys are going to do in the future.
Well said, Eddie. Well, yeah, that wraps up the review part of the show. It's now time to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Las Vegas-based heavyweight contender. It is, of course, the main man himself, Mr. Michael Hunter. Mike, welcome back on the show, my man.
Thank you. What's going on? Glad to be here.
Glad to have you back, Mike. Glad to have you back. So we last spoke back in early April. So, yeah, it hasn't been that long, to be honest. A lot has happened, though, since then for yourself, for the heavyweight division, the landscape of it. At the time when we last spoke, you promised that there would be big fight news for yourself in the near future. You teased us at the time. You, of course, were referring to a fight against Cassius Chaney in Florida. Fast forward a few weeks, and, of course, you won that fight unanimously over 10. Talk me through the fight, Mike.
Mm-hmm. I didn't have a lot of adversity to come through. I started off, downstairs, and basically I threw mostly body shots the whole fight. And, Cassius was a little, frozen. And, I just think that was, I think he was just over his head, and just that's how it ended up being.
And obviously, you say there, you set a high pace. I've never seen you go to the body so many times. Was that all part of a strategy, Mike?
Yeah, but I wasn't meaning to go to the body that much as I did, because I was expecting him to engage at some point. But you just gotta adjust. So, and he was protecting his head very well. He's a big, strong dude. He could still be. He was a still live dog at any point in that fight. He just, we held him off until then. So.
And Cassius Chaney's a friend of the show. He's a cool guy, but I personally was very surprised that he seemed to stay in a shell for almost the whole fight, Mike. You talk about his lack of engagement. At times, he just didn't want to commit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that had a lot to do with the movement and, the body work in the very beginning. A lot of the times, the heavyweights, they don't have a lot of body movement, or, it's a different type of game. So I think that, he just seemed just a different level of experience. That's all.
And also, what happened on the ring walk? Did they mess your music up or something, Mike?
Yeah, they were just a little late on putting it out. Yeah, I think they put out a different song at first. And I told them I wasn't ready, and that wasn't my song. So I was able to, hold them off until they did put on my song. Luckily, everything worked out.
And am I right in saying that you're now signed with Don King?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, because when we had you on last time, obviously, I don't think you mentioned that. It was probably part of all of the news, or what would have been happening with you. What can you tell us about that? What can you tell us about that agreement, Mike?
Well, I mean, as you can see, he's already gotten my titles back with the WBA, so I'll be fighting with him for right now. I have a few fights with him. I think maybe four left.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
And obviously the WBA, they're going to be releasing their rankings in the next few days. You were previously ranked number 8. Chaney was ranked number 7. Where do you expect to be? Surely you're going to move up, move up a few places.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I'll be rated high. Don has a great relationship with them over there. And, he fought for my position. I was already number 1, so, I think it was great that they honored, me being back in my original spot at some point, or getting the opportunity. So, I think that they'll be starting to rate me high the more I win.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why it's a good thing that you picked up the WBA gold title the other week. Yeah, what is the plan, Mike? You said there that you've got like 4 fights left with Don. That's obviously quite a long-term commitment there. What is the plan? When do you want to fight next, or when will you be fighting next?
I'm hoping to fight maybe in August. Just talking to the people. I'm hoping to try to fight in August, and yeah, that's it right now. If not, I'll be fighting. I'm definitely going to be fighting one more time this year, but I would like to get 2 more fights before it's all over this year.
And is there any names, or is it just whoever Don decides on?
Well, I would like the winner out of Big Baby and Martin Bakole.
Okay.
That would be nice. But, we were looking to have that belt that Emmanuel Char has. So I think that, that's an option as well. So there's a few fights out there that could be worked out. So
okay,
we're just going to touch them all.
Okay. You mentioned there Jared Anderson and Martin Bakole. I've seen that Jared Anderson is the favourite with the bookies for that fight. What is your take on that fight? How do you see that one unfolding, Mike?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting fight because this is definitely a step up, obviously, for Anderson. But Anderson is a favorite, So we all do know that Anderson is athletic and has certain capabilities. Excuse me. So, he's very athletic, and he would have the upper hand when it comes to the boxing skill. But there's a lot of, aspects to fighting. So I think that this is a very interesting fight. I'm not really sure who wins, but I think Bakole gives him definitely some issues at some point.
Okay. Again, since we last spoke, we saw the undisputed fight. I wanted to get your reaction as well to Fury Usyk. I can't remember what your pick was beforehand now, but what did you make of the fight?
I thought the fight was exactly what it was supposed to be. That it would be a very close fight, but somebody would have the upper hand, and that would be Usyk. Usyk would be consistently winning throughout the fight, winning the story, and that's what he did.
And also, Wilder Zhang, I do want to get your reaction to that. A few years ago, I certainly didn't rate Zhang at all, but he's really proved me wrong. He's getting older and older, but he's getting better and better, it would appear. Yeah, I want to get your reaction to that, because I think there's a lot of people that probably saw Wilder still as the best heavyweight in America. I don't know if anyone still feels that way, though. You might have took his spot now in everyone's mind.
I like what you said. A lot of people jumping on Deontay Wilder being over and, he's crap now. But really Zhang did a really awesome job. He fought different than I thought he would. He usually sits back, but he walked right to him. And, he dealt with him like he was an experienced southpaw. How an experienced southpaw would deal with a fighter like that. And that's exactly what he did. He he stuck right to the code, and and you know, it worked like a charm. So I have to tip my hat off to Zhang, because I mean, he's been around and he's always had a good backhand, even when he was in when we were all in the amateurs together. And you know, yeah, we got to tip his hat off to him, because he performed. It wasn't that the lack of Deontay Wilder. It was just Zhang has been getting better and progressing as these fights have been coming along.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, that's some good analysis, Mike. Just before we let you go, that's all I've got for you, my friends. So if you want to just sign out with some closing words to the listeners, you know that you do tons of interviews with tons of channels, tons of podcasts, but this is your home.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, BoxHard. I really appreciate y'all for having me on the show. Anytime you want to talk boxing, you know, I'm always here.
There we go. Listen, Mike, as always, the pleasure's mine. Thank you for your time, and we'll speak again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part is the news part. There's one piece of news to bring you. It's a really interesting, fun heavyweight fight. You might like this, Eddie, but we're trying to obviously not waste too much time talking. We want to whiz through the rest of this. But August the 17th, it's going to be live in Quebec, Canada. We're going to see Arslanbek Makhmudov stepping in the ring with Guido Vianello. That's a fun heavyweight fight that I really like. It's going to be live on ESPN. I think that's an interesting fight there. There's no way that's got in the distance. Yeah, unbelievable. Even though Vianello's got a good chin as well. I think he showed that against... was it... Who did he box? Was it... Yeah, Efia Jagba. Yeah, that's that. Okay, moving now to the preview part of the show. We're going to start here with a card that goes down tomorrow at the Bolton Whites Hotel in Bolton. It's going to be live on Channel 5. We're going to see friend of the show topping the bill, Lyndon Arthur, 23-2. I think coming off the loss on points to Dimitri Bivol at the back end of last year. He's back in the ring against Liam Cameron, who's 23-5. The bookies are expecting Lyndon Arthur to stop Liam Cameron, who's never been stopped. Liam Cameron kind of obviously come back from his ban. He's on a bit of a run. It's for the vacant WBA Intercontinental Light Heavyweight title over 10 rounds. All the best to Lyndon Arthur there. Also on the card as well, we should mention Sultan Zorbek. I think the Kazakh fighter is 17-0. It's over 10 rounds at super featherweight against Roman Reynoso, who's 22-4 with 2 draws. Moving now to... Oh no, also on the undercard, I should mention as well, heavyweight Matty Harris, 6-1, back in a 6-rounder against Yuri Bikatsu, who's 10-30 with 3 draws. Moving now to the York Hall Bethnal Green, London. This is also on Friday. It's for the vacant Commonwealth Super Flyweight title. We're going to see Casey Kademi, 10-2 with 2 draws, stepping in the ring with Ryan Farag, who's 21-5. Ryan Farag is about maybe just under 3-1 to win on points. I think that's an interesting bet, even though, you know, Casey Kademi's a friend of the show. He's a nice guy. Obviously, his trainer, Richie Sawyer, another friend of the show, another nice top bloke. So all the best to those guys there. I do think it's a good price, but like I say, I want Casey Kademi and the team to win, so all the best to him. Should be an interesting fight. You know, he hasn't really had the best of times recently, but he's at a more comfortable weight for this fight, so hopefully he does the business. Moving now to the Fontainebleau in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. This one again is also on Friday, so there's 3 cards going down on Friday, 2 of them to be televised. This one's going to be on ESPN Plus, I would have thought. We're going to see friend of the show Troy Isley, 12-0. He's back in a 10-rounder at middleweight for the WBO NABO middleweight title against Javier Martinez, 10-0 with a draw. Somebody's O must go. We're also going to see another friend of the show, Andres Cortez, 21-0, boxing for the WBO NABO super featherweight title over 10 rounds. He's got a high ranking with a WBO. He steps in with Abraham Nova in what I think will be a fun fight. Abraham Nova, 23-2, coming off the loss to Usyk Foster last time out. That was a tough fight as well. Abraham Nova started the fight very well but seemed to fade as it went on. He's a big puncher. I think he's like 6.5 to 1 to get a KO. I think those odds are crazy, but Andres Cortez is a good fighter, and if my memory serves me correct, his favourite flavour of ice cream is cookies and cream. That always stuck with me because that's the same for me. Moving up to the main event though, Rafael Espinoza, the 6'1" featherweight, who is coming off a win last time against Rabisi Ramirez. He dethroned him of the WBO featherweight world title. He's back here in his first defence, which is against Sergio Sanchez, who's 22-1. The one loss came when he got stopped in 2 rounds to Maurizio Lara. He retired on his stall, didn't come out for round 3 in that fight there. I'm guessing Rafael Espinoza to win this fight. He looked really good, and he's absolutely huge for the weight. Like I say, 6'1" featherweight, Eddie. Unbelievable. Moving now to the Resorts World Arena in Birmingham. This one's going to be on Saturday. It's going to be on DAZN. Couple of good fights to mention. Friend of the show, Shannon Ryan, 7-0, stepping in with the undefeated 6-0 Emma Dolan. That's obviously a battle of the undefeateds. It's for the vacant British and also Commonwealth super flyweight titles. Could be interesting there. Obviously, Shannon Ryan in her last fight got busted up, had a really bad cut. Hopefully that's fully healed. It didn't seem like too long ago. Emma Dolan's a good fighter as well, I think, trained by Carl Greaves. So could be an interesting matchup there actually, over 10-2s. Also on the card, we're going to see Lewis Crocker, who is a really good fighter. I think he's got quite a bright future. He's 19-0 boxing Connor Walker, who's 13-2 with a draw. It's over 10 rounds. Connor Walker coming off 2 good wins in a row as well, so he's going into it quite confident. And yeah, the main event is another really good fight, I think. We're going to see Tyler Denny, 18-2 with 3 draws. Defending his EBU European middleweight title. He's been a little bit of a Cinderella man himself. He's had such a crazy story, and he's just on a crazy run. He gets in though with Felix Cash, who's 16-0, and Cash is the favourite here. He's been out the ring for over a year, Felix Cash, at least. It's been quite a long time. I can't tell you when he last boxed, but it seems like he's been inactive. I really feel like it's been quite a while. Could be over a year. I think it is over a year, but could be even 2 years. It seems like ages. I could not tell you when he last boxed. But yeah, should be a good fight. Obviously Tyler Denny can be very busy at times, but you know, the more powerful punchers certainly be Felix Cash. But yeah, interesting to see how he comes back and looks, to be honest with you. I think it's definitely not a foregone conclusion, but I would side with Felix Cash if I had to be pushed. I didn't realise that a couple of fights I've actually missed out on the undercard. Akib Fiaz, 12-1, stepping in with Kane Baker, the very tough game Kane Baker, who is 19-11 these days with 2 draws. That's over 8 rounds at super featherweight. And also Cameron Vuong, who is 4-0. He was supposed to be boxing Jordan Flynn. Jordan Flynn pulled out the fight with an injury, which is a shame because the first fight Cameron pulled out with an injury, then this time Jordan's pulled out with an injury, so I don't know if we're going to see that fight. But anyway, Cameron's still fighting. He's in a 10-rounder here against Jeff Afori, who's 13-7 with 2 draws. He blows hot and cold, I think, Jeff Afori. Sometimes puts in an unbelievable performance, sometimes kind of stinks the place out a little bit. That might be a bit harsh, but sometimes he just doesn't show up. He's just not the same fighter. So depends what version we're going to get of him on the night, but the bookies are expecting Vuong to win that one on points, despite stopping 3 of his 4 opponents thus far into his pro career. And that brings the preview part to an end. So I've flown through that as quick as I could have done. In part 1 we did the review part. That was quite lengthy. Then we welcomed our special guest. In part 2 we did the news and the preview part just there. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 453 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A massive shout out to this week's special guest, the heavyweight contender, Mr. Michael Hunter. The biggest thanks of all, though, as always, goes out to you, the listeners. Thanks once again for tuning in. Remember to tell a friend, to tell a friend, to tell a friend about the podcast. Remember, you can follow us on social media at BoxHard_podcast on Twitter and at BoxHard Podcast on Instagram. That is about everything, though, from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we shall see you all again same time next week.